I can't say I'm disappointed because it's basically been the same thing for Metallica for, well, a while now. I feel like after the Black Album, they decided to just kind of simplify things even more and have stuck with that since the Load and Reload era. And, I mean, yeah, Death Magnetic and Hardwired to Self Destruct were definitely, I think, better than most people give them credit for. I think just because the crappy production on Death Magnetic and the more, I guess you can say, Saint Angerish things that come out about Hardwired to Self Destruct when we talk about its sound, it definitely brings people down a little bit. But it was better than what they were putting out before. I mean, especially since those two albums were the follow-ups to Saint Anger. It was like, well, at least it's not shit. But after Hardwired to Self Destruct, I said Metallica needs to get back on the path. Not necessarily of doing what they used to do, but just making interesting music again. But here with the new album, 72 Seasons, it's just been the same thing as always. There's this generic guitar solo by Kirk Hammett, some, pretty just generic drumming by Lars in general. I mean, when you compare the first four albums of Metallica's career before they got to the Black Album, Lars was able to always do some great things with the drums, but it's since been simplified and hasn't really been used well since that time. It's just like, what happened to the talent that we know you have, and yet you just continue to do the same blue, 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 like drum beat, almost teetering on the edge of Saint Anger, just minus the loud, obnoxious snare drum. The lyrics can be a bit hit or miss, and my main problem I've always had with Metallica, even though I'm a fan of them, is some of their songs are just too long. Like, I don't have a problem with long songs in general, but there's just some songs that don't deserve to be as long as they are. Like, let's take for example, the song Lux Aeterna is 3.5 minutes long. That is a perfect length for it. It is very high intensity, very fast, it does its thing, it doesn't last too long, it feels a little short, sure, but it doesn't overstay its welcome. But we get other songs on here that are 6.5 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, and even the last track is 11 minutes, and it just seems to carry on forever while most of the song just doesn't do anything in general to keep you interested. I think my favorite songs on this album are Lux Aeterna, If Darkness Had a Sun, Room of Mirrors, and yes, the 11-minute track Inamorata, which does have more going for it than I think most people will realize. For its 11-minute length, it'll feel a little bit shorter than that. Okay tracks, we have the title track and Shadows Follow. Those two were the first two tracks on the record, and they didn't really start all that well for me. You Must Burn, Crown of Barbed Wire, and Too Far Gone are also songs that I just thought were fine for being Metallica songs, but they can really make those songs better if it sounded like they even tried at all. And then my least favorite songs, Screaming Suicide, Sleepwalk My Life Away, and Chasing Light. These ones just had the weakest qualities of Metallica that you do not want at all. Like, seriously. This was 7 years in the making. I know they take a while in between records. Ever since Load Reload, it was 6 years for Saint Anger, 5 years for Death Magnetic, 8 years for Hardwired, and now 7 years for this album. But again, it somehow still feels like Metallica rushed through this, even though they've had all this time, because they're not putting out something we know is up to their full potential. Like I said, they don't have to go back to their old thrash metal sound. They just need to get back to being interesting, because frankly, there was times in this record where I thought about quitting and just not doing a review at all. I just couldn't get through some of these songs enough to where I'm like, is it over yet? Can we get on to the next song? And I was like 25 minutes in, and I'm like, oh, I'm only on track 3, about to get to track 4 out of 12 songs on this album. So it just 77 minutes is way too long, and a lot of these songs don't do anything to keep you interested aside from a couple. And the only one that really sounds like it has any intensity whatsoever is Lux Aeterna. And like I said, that's the shortest song on the record. So it's a bit disappointing that the shortest song on the record is the best, because you kind of want more of it in a way, but you don't get anything close to it. So yeah, overall, I'll say 72 Seasons gets a 5 out of 10. It's just very meh at best, at least for Metallica standards, and there's really not a whole lot to say about it past that. So you can tell me in the comments below what did you think of this record. But until then, stay safe out there, and I will catch you all in the next one.